Hi there, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Do you have a homestead, farm, or just dream of a rural life? This is a show to help you and your kids grow your own food and grow as a person. I'm your host, Kody Hanner. I'm a homesteader, homeschool mama six, and small town enthusiast. I was raised by an old school rancher and blessed by the grace of God to have been exposed to so much of what rural life has to offer. Join me every week to talk about homesteading, homeschooling, and growth with a homestead education. Hi, and welcome back to the Homestead Education Podcast. I just want to remind you that you can get all of my homestead science curriculum books on my website for a new way of teaching your kids agriculture. Now, I want to tell you guys a little bit about how our weekend went. We butchered a sow. She was a sow that has been a little bit of an issue for us. She's killed a couple of litters, she's gotten aggressive, so it was time. We had some friends up. We kind of had an old-fashioned hog butchering. It took all weekend. All the kids helped, even the 3-year-olds. It was a great time. We ended up getting 375 pounds of usable product. I am feel so blessed that our freezer is going to be full. Our good friend and my business manager's freezer will gonna freezer is going to be full, and all the kids learned valuable skills. I used we primarily made sausage, and we used all spices from Spokane Spice Company. Oh my gosh, are they amazing. We made like 7 different types of sausages, and so far we've tried the country sausage and a breakfast sausage that had sage in it. They had 2 different ones, and I picked both of them, but the one we tried had sage, and oh my gosh, mind blown. And it was so easy to do too. I mean, it took us all weekend, but my calculations say that she was probably a 700-pound sow. So, I it that went incredibly easy with just 2 couples and kids doing it. Now, be sure and tune in Friday for my YouTube video. At least I hope it comes out Friday, which is the end of this week. So if you're tuning into this later, you'll be able to get it on YouTube. I am doing a whole video on the slaughtering and processing of this sow. Now, none of us are professional butchers, but we've all hunted our whole lives. We've had a lot of experience working with meat, and this ended up turning out really awesome. And so I'm hoping that by watching this video, that you can see how easy it is to grow and process your own meat. I'll keep it classy, but I'm including all the blood and guts too because that is part of it. So I hope you tune in to check that out. So I have an interview today that isn't one that I normally do. Now, I have a lot of curriculum writers on because I'm a curriculum writer and I'm big on homeschool. But I had a curriculum writer reach out to me recently. His name's Larry Leonard, and he writes curriculum on sign language. He has been translating sign language since he was about 9 years old. He learned in his church, which he'll tell you the whole story. But the reason I really felt like this one resonated with me is having a child on the spectrum, as well as a few other children that have, learning disabilities. I have always been big on homeschoolers taking that step of getting their kids out of public schools, especially those with developmental disabilities. But it's really hard to make that choice when you're not used to, when you feel like you need to have that, like the one-on-one aids and things like that that the school districts provide. Um, so especially if you are, a single parent or, a parent that has to work and you need to be able to put your kid into a school system, that's why I love the new movement of farm schools and charter schools and programs like that. And I will help programs that specialize in developmentally disabled children get my curriculum into that program so that these kids can be learning real life hands-on skills that often makes more sense to these kids that have struggles because it associates with real life. So when this gentleman reached out to me, I just felt like this was something that was near and dear to my heart. And I'm really excited for him to share his story with you guys and for you to learn about this curriculum because he has the same heart when it comes to helping these kids that need that, little bit extra from their learning environment and from their parents. And he helps with that too. So, I mean, just listen to his story. You'll see why it matches my heart so much. And it was just a really good conversation. So, I hope you guys enjoy. And hi, everyone. Today I have Larry Leonard from American Sign Language Center and excited to have
Hello.
you on today.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here.
Wonderful. So, you reached out to me recently about a curriculum that you wrote,
Yes.
and I just really liked your story and wanted to be able to chat more about American Sign Language and
Mhm.
homeschooling.
Okay. Awesome.
So, tell me a little bit about you.
Well, I grew up signing. I started learning in church and
Oh, fun.
started interpreting for church when I was in high school. And then I went to college and formally was educated in ASL. I got to live at the deaf school for a year as part of my curriculum. I was training to be a teacher. So I got to live at the deaf school for a year as part of my practicum. And then I did half a year of student teaching at the deaf school. And um, so I had a really strong foundation in sign language, but then being formally trained and immersed in the deaf culture and just having a lot of deaf people pour into my life and just being in the deaf community just really grew my skills. Then I was a public school teacher for 24 years and taught deaf ed, developmental preschool, first grade, second grade. Um, the deaf ed was K through 12, and then I started a high school sign language program.
Oh, that's
So,
wonderful. So, how did you end up learning it in church? Was there like deaf families in your church or?
no, there actually wasn't. I learned the way most hearing kids learn from not deaf people. Our Sunday school teacher started teaching us songs in sign language. So I started at age 9, just learning lots of songs, and it just progressed through there. Moved to another church when I was in high school that had a deaf ministry. So there were deaf people and interpreters there, and the interpreters would offer classes after church on Sundays. And so I'd go to those classes after church every Sunday and take sign language classes.
Oh, that's wonderful. Did you grow up in a large city?
No, not really.
Oh,
It was large enough. It's southern Indiana, New Albany,
oh, okay.
Jeffersonville area. Yeah.
I actually just came through there.
Oh, what were you doing
Yeah.
down there?
I was in Indianapolis for a conference. I was speaking at a homesteading conference there, and then
Awesome.
we were going to Missouri afterwards, so we kind of just snaked down through
Right. Yeah.
southern Indiana, and I found a really good barbecue restaurant there.
Oh, really? What was it called? Was it called Rubbin' Butts? They have one
No.
down there called It's Two Pigs, and you see them rubbing their butts, and it's a
Oh, that's
barbecue
too
place.
funny. No,
Yeah.
it was down. I thought we were in St. Louis already. And
Oh,
then
okay.
I had brought up my GPS to let my friend know how close we were to her house. And I was like, oh, we're still in Indiana. Smoky something. I don't know. But the mac
Okay.
and cheese was actually the best mac and cheese I've ever had. Even my
Nice.
husband, who was like, I don't know why you always order mac and cheese at a barbecue place, tasted it and was like, that is amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But so what made you decide to major in sign language in college?
Well, I just knew I wanted to be a teacher. And so
Hmm.
I just started out doing regular education. And since I signed, everybody was like, well, you should do deaf ed. And so I ended up doing a dual major, and I didn't know it was going to be two majors. So I ended up going even longer than I had planned. So
Been
back
there.
then, yeah, well, and then I had to do a year of student teaching because back then they do a year for your elementary ed and then a year for your deaf ed. I mean, a semester for
Oh,
LM and then a
okay.
semester for deaf ed. So I did a year of student teaching
Oh,
afterwards.
wow.
So I had never planned on teaching deaf. I'd never planned on teaching ASL. I never planned on becoming an interpreter. It's just the way things went.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all kind of end up in those places.
Yeah.
Um, I had two majors. I was agriculture and business. And
Nice.
it kind of started out, and I still, now that I'm done, I have my bachelor's in ag, and I am one class away from having my minor in ag business.
You
And
need
I
to
was
do
like,
that just because.
I know it's a just because, like, I never
Yeah.
got a good grade in organic chemistry. And that drove me crazy because I was a really good student. And after I
Yeah.
graduated, I took it at night at a community college just so that I could say that I got a good grade in that class. So,
That's awesome.
but yeah, I was a 100% USDA all the way. That's what I wanted
Hmm.
to do. I wanted to
Yeah.
work for USDA.
Hmm.
And I ended up working in the private sector, getting food plants ready for inspections.
Hmm.
But now I am on that homestead realm where I'm all like, we don't do the USDA, everything's rogue food. I mean, going from the food safety industry to a huge
Right.
proponent for raw milk is,
Right. A little different.
yeah, I never, like, I remember actually reading articles about people who drank and sold raw milk, and I would be like, what is wrong with those people?
Exactly. Exactly.
Now I have a raw milk dairy, so,
There you go. There you go. That's
it's,
awesome.
yeah, it's definitely one of those ones that you just don't see yourself going down those paths, but you tend to excel in the ones that you don't plan on.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
And,
I think
and
I was comfortable in agriculture,
mhm,
and I've had to like push myself outside of the box and learn to be
mhm,
in the field I am now. So,
right. Right. That's cool.
yeah. So, how was it living in a deaf school as a hearing person? And if
It
I say
was,
anything not the right vernacular, please
yeah,
feel free
yeah.
to correct me.
No, I will. Yeah, no biggie. No, it was totally different than what I thought. I thought it'd be a very quiet environment because they're deaf. And that's not at all the case.
Well, they don't know how loud they are, no.
Well, and sometimes that's it. But if they're across the room from each other, they'll bang on a table, they stomp on the
Mm-hmm.
floor, they'll yell to get each other's attention. And they have parties at their school, just like, you have homecoming and dance parties, and their music. The first one I ever went to, oh, I'll never forget. I was in there with all of the deaf. We're all in there. All these high schooler kids were in there, and I was in there, and I was young at the time. I was still in my 20s, but I remember I couldn't hear very well. You have a visitor,
Yeah,
and
apparently my teenagers don't notice that he snuck in.
somebody's absconded, and
Yeah.
I left because it was so loud. And when I left, it felt like I had blood running out of my ears
Oh,
because I kept going up. There's got to be something running out of my ears, and I'd wipe the side of my ears, and it was crazy. And I end up afterwards. They're like, get earplugs, duh. But I didn't think about it
oh,
at the time. So the deaf school was really cool. I got to work with deaf children every day from 9 until 3, and then I helped coach the swimming team because I was a swimmer and competitive swimmer.
oh, I was a
So I
swimmer too.
really,
Yeah, I swam for 9 years.
what was your best stroke?
Butterfly.
Oh, that ended up being my favorite stroke at the end. I started out being able to swim backstroke faster than anything
Oh,
else.
wow.
My first year swimming, because I had never competitively swam. So, yeah, I did that, and then just being immersed in the deaf culture, it was really really it was cool. Just to let you know that I grew up signing, and I went to college, and I grew up signing English, which is different. There are different kinds of sign language. Only
Hmm.
one of them is a true language, and that's ASL, American Sign Language.
Okay.
Signed English is what hearing people did to sign language to help teach deaf children how to read. So they put in English word order, but signed English isn't an actual language. It's a visual representation of spoken
Oh.
English. So, but that's what I grew up signing, and I didn't know any difference. Because even in high school, whenever I would meet deaf, I had a hard time understanding them, and I didn't realize that they were signing ASL and I was signing English. I didn't know, and I'm like, I don't understand. I don't understand these people. And a
Hmm.
really cool story is when I was a junior and senior high school, I used to go to the nursing home, and I would interpret for this old deaf couple. She was in there because she had Alzheimer's and dementia, and he'd go there every Sunday, and I'd interpret. And they
Oh,
would understand for the most part. And every Sunday afterwards, they come and talk to me. And I couldn't carry on a conversation because if you don't know ASL, you can't understand it. Even if you can sign English, it's a it's different word order, different syntax, and
wow.
the signs are different. So I had done that for a year, interpreted for that couple, and I could never have a meaningful conversation with them. Well, then I went to Ball State is where I went to college, and I took a year of ASL there, and then I took my second year of ASL, and I started going back to the church, and I would interpret at that nursing home. And I'll never forget the very first time I interpreted in ASL. And the look on his face changed, and I had no idea what was going on. And then afterwards, he came up and signed. And we had, after knowing him for more than a year, I had my first meaningful conversation with him,
Oh,
and I got to find out why his wife was there, what was wrong with her, and we had this really long conversation. So that's why whenever when people are like, well, I'll sign English because it's everybody else writes English. That was how I grew up thinking. But ASL
mhm.
is a different language. ASL is the language of deaf. And so if you want to learn a true language, you learn ASL, you don't learn signed English. But anyway, the funny part was whenever I went to the deaf school and lived there, they all thought I was deaf because I could sign like a deaf person. It
Oh,
changed
wow.
in me, and I could sign like a deaf person, but receptively, my eyes, I couldn't understand what they were signing because they were signing too fast for me. And they would sign so fast. And so every day at the end of the day, they all got down in the lobby and they would play cards and tell jokes, and what high schoolers do, but they're on a
Yeah.
campus. And I would sit down there and I just sat and watched and watched. And finally, school starts in mid-August, October, November. I remember in November and December, I finally started understanding. They didn't understand why I wouldn't play. I'm like, I don't understand what you're saying. I can sign. And they're like, oh, he's deaf. No, I'm not deaf. I can't get it through my eyes. And about November, December, I started being able to join them. And then through the rest of the year, I could just hang out with them. And so if it weren't for deaf and hanging out with deaf, there's no way I could do what I do because
Yeah.
I got the skills from them.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, and so many people that, if they're, want to be interpreters or, teach Spanish or something like
Right.
that, they'll go spend a year in Mexico or in
Right.
Spain because there's just no way that you can completely
Right.
do that.
You need that immersion. And if you
Hmm.
can't get it at a school, I was fortunate it was part of my college programming. Then if you can't get it there, then you Google and you find deaf meets and you go hang out, and then you grow your signs, your ability to sign, and your ability to understand sign. It's slower, but
Hmm.
it's the way to do it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know, we didn't really like cover this, but like,
Mm-hmm.
are there a lot more programs out there now, like with, like cell phones and things like that, where
Yeah.
deaf people are, it's easier to like communicate when they go shopping or,
Yes and no. One of the things I do on a
well,
daily. Oh, go
I'll
ahead.
back that up real quick. In high school, I have a cousin
Mm-hmm.
who developed a glove that
Mm-hmm.
you could sign and it would come
Mm-hmm.
out on a screen
Mm-hmm.
because he was like a genius kid, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
he went to Burger King one time and he felt really bad for this family that couldn't order what they wanted because
Mm-hmm.
they couldn't express themselves. And so he designed this glove that as they signed, it would come out on a
Mm-hmm.
screen. Now, of course, that was 20 years ago, so I know that we have better technology now.
Well, I don't. I can't tell if you have better technology or not. The problem with that is that not every deaf person, just like when we speak, and you know how sometimes they have voice caption that will pick up what you're talking and caption it live while you're speaking.
Hmm.
And it's taken a long time to be able to get that to match pretty much whoever's speaking can do that. With
Hmm.
sign language, it's the same thing because it doesn't read your facial expression. So it
Mm.
might get your word out, but if I sign it differently than someone else signs it, then it's not going to work. So because there are different regional signs, like if you go um, to different places, they'll have different signs for different things. So if that glove doesn't know every region it's in and all
Mm.
the signs, then it's not going to work.
I think this
And
one, for example, only did letters, so you could just
right.
sign it.
And then that would be, very easily used.
Hmm.
But there have been people who've worked on signing gloves. So if someone puts it on it and it will read. And I've watched the people who are developing these, and I love their heart. I do. I love their heart,
Hmm.
but they're almost always a hearing person that's developing them. And
Yeah.
when I'm watching them, they're not even signing it right. So they've programmed the glove to read signs wrong. So
Mm.
it's really important that if you're going to ever teach sign language or you're going to do something like that, you've been immersed in the language and you really know it well. And we love the hearts. I love the hearts of people.
Hmm.
But the thing with sign language is if you invent a glove that can do the sign, all of your grammar, like your question, your emotions, all that is in your face and your body. And so the glove will
Okay.
never be able to read if you're telling someone something or if you're asking somebody something or if you're excited or you're demanding. So it's going to be like Bueller, 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 Bueller. And that's what it's going to be like with you have a signing glove, which, and some people say,
Okay.
well, that's better than nothing. But for
Sometimes
deaf,
that can be very frustrating.
it can be very frustrating. And for deaf, it's not better than nothing. They
Hmm.
would prefer to why not learn sign language if you're going to spend millions of dollars to develop a glove for me. And I'm not,
Hmm.
like I said, I am not knocking the gloves that have
Oh,
been made because I
yeah.
love the
Well,
people's
I always just
hearts.
was intrigued by it.
Right.
Like, do they
Yeah.
work?
Yeah. And some of those do work, but they
Hmm.
don't work like a deaf person would need them to work.
So have
So
they come up with like I mean, if they can recognize our faces through an iPhone, would they be able to, like, you could sign something into an iPhone and have it translated?
I am sure that's out there happening somewhere. I am not a
Okay.
tech person. I can teach classes remotely, I can interpret remotely, but sometimes the technology doesn't even like me then.
So
I'm not
I
a
thought
tech
maybe you might
person.
know of something, and so I was.
No, no, but see that's going to happen. It's
Mhm.
going to happen sooner or later because we do have things that can read our faces. I mean, it's just going to happen one of these days. How well it's going to work is another story.
Yeah, that's yeah.
So, but
Well, and I'm a
because
little. I think I'm a little more intrigued now at the moment. I teach a deaf Down syndrome girl
uh-huh.
in my co-op, and her
Mm-hmm.
aide is deaf as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I mean, she can read lips really well, and she has a
Mm-hmm.
what do they call them?
Cochlear implant.
Thank you. Wanted to say coniker, and I knew that wasn't
Yeah.
right.
Yep. Cochlear implant.
Um, yeah, and so I can conversate really well, but I'm just a little bit more like I wish I could
Mm-hmm.
reach them
Mm-hmm.
more, especially the little girl.
Yeah. Right now, I'm also a developmental therapist. So I work with families in the community, and I'm currently working with a little 2-year-old boy with Down syndrome
Oh.
who has no speech. He can't
Hmm.
speak. He has hearing, but because of his delays, he's not able to speak yet. So I work with the whole family, teaching the whole family sign language. And I've been working with him for about 7 months, and he has like 100 and something signs now.
Good
And
for
so
him.
it's really,
My little
it's really
guy that
cool.
just came in
Mhm.
here, he's almost 4 and doesn't talk.
Oh, yeah.
Don't know why. We've done all the, I mean, because I have an autistic son, so
Hmm.
he was nonverbal till he was
Hmm.
6, and we did signs with him and
Right.
stuff.
Hmm.
This guy, he has no desire to speak. He has no desire to sign.
Hmm.
Um,
Selective mutism.
yeah,
Yeah.
he will do like charades,
Hmm.
which is kind of hilarious.
Now, when you say this little guy, is that your son?
Uh-huh.
Oh, cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
I mean, he's
Yeah.
brilliant.
But he just chooses not to. When I taught developmental preschool, I had a
Hmm.
boy in there for 2 years. He did not talk the whole time he was in there. Now, it was funny because if his parents came in, he would talk 100 miles a minute, and he loved being in the classroom, but he
Hmm.
wouldn't talk in the preschool room. One time he did, and I made a big deal of it, and I was so excited. It shut him up. He never talked again.
Oh
So
no.
I'm like, I've learned my lesson. If you ever make another noise, I'm not going to say anything to you. But he didn't want to learn sign language either. He was just
Yeah.
selective mutism.
This, my son, he has, I don't know, maybe at this point we're pushing on 20 words, but
Mhm,
I
mhm,
most people would not understand them at all. And we have
yeah,
6 kids, so I mean we've gone through all the phases
mhm.
of different children.
Right,
And he's our
right.
youngest, and he's just not interested in any real form of communication.
And with selective mutism, you just let it go until they're ready. I mean, you bribe them
Mhm.
sometimes. You put them in such situations where they bite. I would bribe this kid. I would bribe this kid, and I couldn't get him to. And he would
Yeah.
want it, and then I was just like, okay, fine, here, because you're in my classroom. I'm not going to make you suffer.
Yeah.
Just I just it's a form of control. There's
Hmm.
something going on and they need to control this issue for some reason. For some reason, for some, it's not a form of control. There's different
Hmm.
reasons for selective mutism.
This kid's a
So,
little feral. And I mean, I don't even know how else to describe him. Like, I mean, since he's been able to move,
mhm.
it's a full-time job for all the other seven of us in the household
Yeah.
to
Well,
keep this kid from like offing himself. So,
yeah, yeah. I saw him
um,
sneak in, and he was very proud of himself.
yeah,
Yeah,
like 14 months old, he took apart the baby gates and hit all the screws. Um,
yeah. Very smart child.
yeah, I caught him the other day trying to give a dog an IV.
Oh,
Like,
yeah,
because we're farmers, so we have all the
yeah.
equipment, but like I couldn't find him and I found him in the laundry room and he had the tubing wrapped around his arm and like a bag of fluid on his shoulder. He even had like the anti-nausea meds and he had the needle out and was like just starting to like put it in the dog's leg. And I was like, nah.
Oh my gosh, that's funny. He's going to be like a surgeon or
Oh,
a little Doogie Howser type kind of
yeah,
thing.
he's a brilliant kid. We had to hide the tractor keys because he tries to start the tractor all the time. And so because it wouldn't start for him, he was dragging like jumper cables over and was trying to hook up the jumper cables to this giant tractor. And I'm like, oh, I'm in for it. Like so
Oh,
in for this child.
that's awesome. That's awesome.
I take him to conferences and he has a shirt that says if found, return to homestead science.
That's awesome.
Because
Very
he's
cool.
just and he can't tell you like,
No,
they're, what's your name? Who are you? He's just like,
no, not gonna talk.
yep, just not gonna do it. So
That's funny.
but we tried to teach him, the signs for
Hmm.
like even just the basic stuff. So we knew when
Yeah,
he was hungry or anything, but he was a NICU baby, so he wouldn't let us touch his hands. So, and he wouldn't, when he wouldn't like do it on his own.
right.
And so then we tried to force him to do it to be like, oh, good job. You want more,
Yeah,
and
no,
you know,
he doesn't want anything to do with it. That's
yep.
funny.
So he just does everything on his own now. Like everyone's like, wow, he's kind of naughty. And I'm like, no, he's just doing it on his
And very
own.
independent, doing his own thing. As long as he makes it through life, we're good.
Yeah, like he did all this, like got up at 5 the other morning and did all the steps to make himself his own scrambled eggs. Like cracked the
Oh my
eggs, had them in the
gosh.
pan, seasoned butter, and lit the wrong burner and started a pizza box on fire.
Well, there you go.
And he's sitting there like stirring away, like this is just normal as flames are like shooting up under the pizza box. And
Oh, that's funny.
so, I think these kids that are a little, I don't even know what the word for them are. They're so unique, but they make life so much better.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
So you ended up um developing a curriculum, and this was for your niece?
Yes, my sister homeschools my niece, and
Wonderful.
she asked me to develop a homeschool curriculum of sign language that is specifically for homeschoolers.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I did. I've taught ASL for more than 30 years, and I've taught it birth through 12th grade, and I've taught at the college level. I've taught community. And so what I did is homeschoolers, for not everybody, but homeschoolers in general that I've talked to for a lot of their electives, they do that 1 day a week.
Mm-hmm.
Their electives are 1 day a week. So I thought, okay, so I have to get this to where ASL 1 is condensed into 1 year of 1 day a week. Now, how can we do this? And so that's what I did. I made it so that um, there's a lot more lessons than 30 because 30 lessons is about a school year long, 30 class
Mm-hmm.
meets. And so I went through like I said, my high school curriculum, my college curriculum, and I took out all the really important things that if you're being homeschooled, what
Yeah.
would you need to sign? But also, if you met someone who's not homeschooled, you still can communicate. It's not a totally separate curriculum. I have adults who take this class from me. I have general ed students who are in the public schools who do this as an after school enrichment program. So
Okay.
that's what I did.
I wrote a homeschool curriculum myself, so I definitely
You
understand
understand that.
that you have to be, and mine's kind of it's homestead science, it's farming.
Mm-hmm.
So how do
Mm-hmm.
you take something that's normally a very hands-on
Right.
subject and turn it into
Mm-hmm.
something that can be done in a home and not in like a lab setting or
Right.
yeah.
And so what I did is I took what you would need for conversation, and I put those into, I think, 30 lessons.
Nice.
But then not only is it that, it's okay, let's grab some science. I'm a science freak. And so one of my years in second grade teaching, I turned off my voice from the first day during science. And I taught all of my science in sign language because science is very visual. It's very hands-on. So every day my kids, none of my kids knew sign language. They were all hearing, all second grade.
Okay.
And
it's like an immersion type setup.
I did an immersion setup, and I started teaching all of my science in sign language, and it was amazing. I did everything that they needed to learn, and it was great. So there are 3 lessons that do with life cycles of plants. Well, one's plants, excuse me, one's plants, one's frogs, and butterflies. Those are things that almost any homeschool could do. You can go out and find a plant. You can go out and find a caterpillar. You can go out and find a tadpole and do a frog. And so then they learn the life cycle of a frog. And so that is those are 3 different lessons. And then I also did, what are 3 field trips homeschoolers may do? So there's the museum, there's swimming, and then I'm not going to remember what the third one is, museum, swimming, and there's something else, and I can't remember. But
then, you know what? I have people come to me all the time and be like, does your curriculum cover this? And I'm like, that's an excellent question. Yeah. Let's find out.
Yeah. Well, that's it. And I'm like, I can't remember everything. But then my sister, I'm a Christian.
My curriculum, my textbook is like 300 pages. So there's definitely, I'm like, yeah,
I bet you it's in here somewhere.
Yeah, let's look.
We'll find it. And if it's not really in there, I bet you can change one of these lessons to make it very easily. That's what I look at. But my sister's a Christian and I'm a Christian. But she's like, can you do the 7 C's of history? And I'm like, I don't know what the 7 C's of history are. Sure, I'll do it, but I don't know what they are. And so I had to Google it. The 7 C's of history, it's the guy, and I'm not going to know his name because I haven't gone down there, the guy who built the Ark that's down like in Louisville, Kentucky or something like that, the big Ark.
Okay. Yeah.
Noah's Ark. He came up with the 7 C's of history. And so it's like creation, catastrophe, all the 7 C's that walk you through the biblical. Why are we on earth? What is the purpose of us being on earth? So from creation to crucifixion.
So that's neat. I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, I've not heard of the 7 C's. So and obviously I haven't mastered them. But what I did is I went through and I made 7 lessons, one for each of the C's.
Well, that's a perfect, yeah.
Well, and the reason that I do this whenever I'm doing stuff like this is deaf are the most underreached population for Jesus. So if you're a Christian and you're learning sign language and you want to meet someone and share your faith or share just love or just share whatever,
just be able to take a minute and pray with someone,
right? So you understand. So I teach all the signs. I teach how are you going to tell the 7 C's of history. So that's in the curriculum as well. But that's not like embedded in the curriculum. So if you want to go through the curriculum and you still want to learn, but you're not a Christian or you're not interested in it, I'm sorry. Sorry, I'm having a frog in my throat. You don't have to learn it. It's not actually embedded in the curriculum. It's a separate part of the curriculum, so you can learn it. And I've had people who aren't Christians want to learn it anyway because just because you're not you don't have to be a Christian to want to talk about religion or to someone wants to talk to you about Jesus and you want to say, well, I don't believe in Jesus. Well, if you can't sign it, you can't have a good conversation with somebody if you don't know the vocabulary, whether you're a Christian or not.
Well, and it's hard with curriculums when you want to build a
right.
I personally chose to write mine neutral because I wanted to be able to see it reach a whole generation, not just like homeschoolers. And now that homeschooling is so much more popular, it's not strictly a
Right.
Christian activity anymore. You know,
Exactly.
we're a Christian family, but I felt like what I was wanting to teach was bigger, not even, I want to say bigger than it's,
I understand.
yeah, I'm trying to, I can reach more
Mhm.
people through this,
Absolutely.
and I teach quality of character throughout
Mhm.
my curriculum. So the families, if they want to use each of those like pillars of
Right.
character and pair it
Mhm.
with their Bible study, they can.
Right. And that's why I didn't embed that part into my
Mhm.
curriculum, because the most important thing is learning the language, understanding the culture, understanding the history. You have to have that before you can do anything else.
Well,
And
that's
if
what I was
you
going to ask. Does it cover like
Mhm.
sociology and history of
Mhm.
like sign
Absolutely.
language and
Yes, yes, it
oh, I
does.
love that.
Well, ASL, American Sign Language,
Hmm.
was originally brought over from France. There's a deaf person from France and started the first deaf school in America, and it was taught
Wow.
through French Sign Language. And that eventually ended up merging with, there's a group, there was a place in Martha's Vineyard where a lot of deaf people lived. So they had their own sign language. And so those two populations of people ended up merging together and getting to know each other. And so ASL, which was really French Sign Language, mixed with Martha's Vineyard Sign Language to sort of start the foundation. But here you go. Then you have children who never went to either one of these schools who were deaf, so they had more home signs. So they integrated with that. So you have some home signs put in there. But then you also have segregation. So you have Black deaf who are educated separately from white deaf. So they both had different sign languages. And so when we were integrating Black with white, Black people brought their what over to white people. And so then we had Black Sign Language mixing with American Sign Language. So we have this rich heritage of language that people really don't know what
Wow.
it's where this language comes from. And then you have Native American. So there's some Native American influence. And then you have English, because English is everywhere, all around us in America. So that has
Hmm.
an influence on sign language as well. So there's that huge history. So there's a lesson on the history of sign language. There's all kinds of stuff in there. And then I have the five main holidays that I celebrate. And of course, people are like, well, there's not this one. There's Easter, Christmas, birthdays, maybe New Year, and something else. There's another one. And so I teach all of that. And
Uh-huh.
and then on the Christmas part, I teach the Santa Claus part, because lots of Christian families do Santa Claus.
Yeah.
But then some don't. And then there's some only that believe in Santa Claus, but there's the English part, the Santa Claus part of Christmas, and then there's the Jesus part of Christmas. So that
Hmm.
one's in that lesson as well. So I have, I think, 40 something lessons for the
Nice.
year. Yeah.
Um, so are they video lessons or is there workbooks
Okay.
or
So here's why I do it the way I do it.
okay.
A lot of people are pushing free curriculum. Get on this site, get on this site, get on this site. It's all free. You can learn. Here's the problem. Our ears are tuned to learning foreign languages. So if you hear me go, sprechen Sie Deutsch, you'll go like, hey, that guy's not a native German, because you can tell. But if I go, sprechen Sie Deutsch, you're like, he might know German sort of well. If I say, parlez-vous français, you might go, his French might be pretty good. But if I say, habla español, you'll say, oh, he doesn't speak Spanish. That's speaking
Yeah.
Spanish words, but it's not speaking Spanish. It's
Hmm.
habla español o no habla español. Mi
Hmm.
habla español muy poquito y muy mal. Yo estudié español en la escuela muchos años pasada. So, I mean, there's a difference between speaking words and knowing the language.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of hearing people who are being encouraged to learn by free stuff. I'm all for free stuff. I understand the free stuff. The problem is our eyes are not attuned to learning a signed visual language. And so for sign language, there are 5 parameters for every sign. And if you just move one of those parameters off, you're signing the wrong thing. So even in class, when I'm teaching it, and I've taught the 5 parameters, and I've gone through the vocabulary, and I've gone through the phrases, and we've had our A/B conversations. They turn around and they'll still sign it wrong sometimes. Well, I'm there to help correct it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you're learning sign language from free stuff all the time, you have nobody to teach it to you correctly. So you're going to learn it incorrectly
Mm-hmm.
because your eyes don't know that you're signing it wrong. You think you're signing it right because I have students, well, this is what you signed. I never signed it that way. I guarantee you, yes, you did. That's why I learned it that way. No, because your eyes aren't attuned to learning a visual language.
Sounds like a
So
conversation I have with my 15-year-old regularly.
spoken language even.
Yeah.
But
Well, he's like, I washed that dish just like you did. Oh, no.
no, you didn't, because you don't visually know how to work yet.
Yeah.
And it's washing that dish you haven't learned how to do yet.
Yeah.
So what I've done is I don't sell my curriculum. It is on video. Everything's on a flash drive.
Mm-hmm.
I have gone through and I've made PowerPoints for every word, and there's a video for every word. The PowerPoint and video for every phrase, the PowerPoint and the video for every conversation. And I go through the lesson just like I would teach it, but I don't sell my curriculum. Most of the curriculums out there that you purchase that are done well are anywhere between $400 and $600, well, maybe $300 to $500, $300 to $400, just for the curriculum, and you're learning on your own. It's not the free stuff, but it's a well-made curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to learn any better from a well-made curriculum you're paying $300 or $400 for, or if you get a well-made free curriculum, you're going to learn the same. So what I've done is I have, instead of charging $300, $400, $500 for my curriculum, I offer classes. And so I meet once a week with your family or just your one child in a small group over Zoom, and I teach it. And then you get the curriculum. It's only $30. The curriculum's only $30 separately. But I teach you an hour of well-taught small group instruction. And I
do you
teach
charge
you
for
the
your
lesson.
Classes as well?
Yes, I do. I do
Okay,
charge
good.
for the class because I
was
can't
like,
afford to do that
wait,
for free.
Please don't tell me here.
I got to pay for my kids to eat, you know.
Oh yeah, no, I get it. And
this is what I'm doing instead of being in a classroom teaching. I've gone to working from home, developing this curriculum. So I interpret for a company most of the time, and then what I'm doing is growing this. And this is going to sound harsh. When I was a public school teacher, when I had homeschoolers coming to my classroom, they were always behind, undereducated. That's how I thought homeschoolers homeschooled. So I had a very bad perspective on how homeschoolers homeschool. My sister started homeschooling, and I got to see how it's done well. Just like with teachers, there are great teachers and there are bad teachers. There are great homeschooling parents, and there are some that are struggling, and there are also some that they say that's what they're doing, especially where I was, and they weren't really doing anything.
Yeah, well, and there's also the piece of if you have a developmentally or physically disabled child, they're going to be behind.
Right.
And also, what is behind?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You know, I have a first grader who we're still working on a preschool prep English because he was not interested in learning English. He actually, we'll talk about this later. Now, he has self-taught himself math to the 3rd grade level.
Yeah. He's a boy.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
A boy.
So then he comes to me the other day and he goes, Mom, you bought me this set to collect bugs, and it came with a bug identification chart, and I cannot read my bug identification chart. And I was like, I guess we better learn to read. And now he wants to do his lessons every day.
Yep.
And he asked me to download him reading eggs, and he's like, I mean, he's blasted through all these lessons because he wanted to learn. So it's one of those things that, like you said, and I'm not even trying to defend homeschooling necessarily, because my kids went to public school until 3rd grade, my older ones. And I was, my teenagers were in junior high when we pulled them, because we were like, this is what you do. And then we were like, oh, no, there's something better we can do.
Right. Well, and that's why I developed the program the way I did, because there are ASL programs in public schools. Not all of them are well done, but they have access to live instruction or really good video instruction, and then there's someone who comes and works with them. But that's beside the point. What I wanted to do is I wanted to offer affordable, well done ASL classes for homeschool students. That's what I want to do. And so what I've done is I charge per family. Now, my sister just sent me this thing, and it says, this is, I'm not going to show it. I'm not going to say it, but this ASL program, they charge $600 per student for once a week, 1 hour lessons for live instruction. So many homeschool families, one, they don't have a lot of money, just like even non-homeschooling families don't have a lot of money. So that's on, but a lot of homeschool
families are single income,
and they have a lot of kids. So if the parents wanted to, one of the at the beginning, it was like I was going to charge per child. But then what happens if they can only pay for one? Well, then one child gets to learn, and then the rest get to learn from that one child. That's not what I like. I didn't like that. I want homeschool families to have a well-done program that they have access to. That's not on, like, they can access it without it being online, except for the teaching portion. So what I do is I charge $300 per family. It ends up being $10 a lesson for an hour lesson. So $10 once a week is all I charge.
You said 300?
Yeah, it ends up 300 because I teach 30 lessons in the year.
Yeah.
So it's
that half a second that you said that, my brain was somewhere else. And
okay.
What did he say?
No, not $300 a lesson. It's $300 per family for the whole year. So
that's
I have
really reasonable.
It is. It's $10. If it's one child, it's $10 for one child once a week.
And if you have 6 kids, it's
and I have one family right now that has 3 children, and they only have one tech device, so all of them are on the screen at one time, and we make it work. We make it work. And so what I want is, and somebody out there is going to say, or they're going to say, oh, he's hearing. You can't learn, you should learn hearing ASL from a hearing person. So let me cover that one really fast.
Yeah.
Just because you're hearing and speak English as your native language doesn't mean you're qualified to teach English. You're just not. I know some deaf people who've studied English more than I have, and they're probably better qualified to teach English than I am, the rules and all that stuff. So when it comes to ASL, there are definitely hearing people that should never be teaching it. They should never be making a video and putting it on YouTube, because hearing people's eyes are not attuned to learning a visual language, and they're watching these. I just Googled a song the other day, and I went through and scrolled through. Guess who had the most likes? The hearing person who signed the song. There were 2 of them standing side by side, and they didn't even sign the signs correctly. It was horrible, but they had way more views than the deaf people who had done a very good job signing it. And it was beautiful, and it was well done, because our eyes are not attuned to a visual language, and we don't know what's good and what's not. So what I want to do is I want to provide well-taught classes. I want it to be direct instruction, where you get feedback, where they are learning the language correctly. And I do typically teach at 90% in target language, which is what you want to do for a foreign language. You want 90% in target language. So my voice is off most of the time when I'm teaching, because there's a PowerPoint for everything. Everything's done that way. So the way it works is, if your co-op wants to do their own class, you sign your co-op, and you sign up for however many families are in there, and we all meet at one time. And if not, then I try to get as many families that want to get in on a certain day and time, and I do a class. And then the curriculum is on a flash drive, and it has every lesson that I teach. Like I said, it has every word signed, every phrase signed, and every AB conversation signed. So I teach it, direct instruction. You have the flash drive. So the only hour a week, if you're not like, oh, I don't do internet, I don't have internet where I live. My sister doesn't. She has to go to the library or go to the church and get one of those the things that can pick it up wherever you go. I don't have one.
Okay.
It's like a booster or something. Hotspot. There you go. Thank you.
Okay.
Hotspot. She has to do a hotspot for hers at her house because she doesn't have internet. But she only has to, for 1 hour a week, find the internet wherever she's going. She goes with her homeschool
It's
co-op.
not
I,
bad.
I teach them their lesson and then they go off and then they have it on the flash drive. They don't have to have internet again and they get to practice the lesson as many times as they want to.
That's wonderful. I really like, 'cause that was going to be my next question is 1 hour a week enough to have that
No,
practice?
no, 1 hour a week with me is not enough. It is enough
Okay.
to learn the language. It's enough to be able to sign at the end of the year. But it's not enough if
Like a
you
good
really want to.
introductory type.
It's a good, but
Yeah.
I have them. What they do is, so you know how a lot of homeschool parents are like, I need more socialization for my kids. Guess what? You have a ready-made group of socializing time where you can exchange their names and email or FaceTime or Zoom or whatever. And so the students, their homework, I do give homework, I don't grade it, but their homework is they have to watch the video on their own, they have to
Uh-huh.
record themselves, then they have to watch to see if they're signing it right. Are my five parameters right? And then they get on during the week with some of the kids that are in the class and they practice. So and
That's
so
smart.
you get your socialization group there. People, you know, Boy Scouts, you know, Boy Scouts all get together. Karate, they all get together. And one of my and it was just by coincidence, they're all in one place in Ohio. So they're going to all get together in Ohio, far from me. And at the end of the year, I'm going to go up and hang out with them.
Oh,
We're going
fun.
to go to Kings Island or the museum or something. They're all deciding on what we're going to do, but they're going to get to hang out because almost all of them are in Ohio, you know. And
That's
so
neat.
you get your socialization groups where you get to practice. So with me, 1 hour a week, I will teach you what you need to know to be able to sign. But will you have the fluency 1 hour a week? Absolutely not. Practice it throughout the week, go throughout the week. And my homeschoolers, I did a semester of teaching ASL to public high schoolers, and it was the most painful thing I've ever done in my life because they don't want to turn their laptops on. They don't want to follow along. I can't make them look, you know?
Yeah.
And so homeschool families are so amazing to work with. Every single one of my
Because they all
homeschool
want to
classes,
learn. They're like
they,
excited.
yes, they all want to learn. And some of their parents are sitting right next to them, learning with them.
Oh, yeah.
And and it's awesome. So
My
that's
daughter
what
and
I
I
want
took
to do.
us like an online sewing class together, and it was so fun.
Yeah, that's
So,
awesome.
and it was something that we bonded over,
Yep.
and that you don't get, you know, in other ways, like, because, she could take 4-H sewing, or if she was in public school, she could take home ec, and I could take a
Hmm.
sewing class through the
Hmm.
church or something, but would we
Right.
have that relationship together? And no.
No, it's just I really feel that this is something it's specifically designed for homeschool. And my goal is one day that any homeschooler who wants to learn sign language has access to a really good program. So here's one of the things I do on the side. If you are a parent and you have a deaf child and you want to learn sign language, or if you're a parent and you have a child, excuse me, and they need to learn sign language, you want them to learn for whatever reason, I do what's called family and friends. Obviously, a shake off of friends and family. That's called family and friends. Is if you get a small group of your friends that want to take the class and family that want to take a Zoom class with me, I only charge $10 a person
Oh,
per hour
nice.
lesson. And so and then the parents get it for free. And the reason is because 90% of deaf children are born to hearing parents. The majority of hearing parents never learn sign language and cannot communicate with their children. I
Hmm.
want every parent out there who has a child who's deaf to be able to communicate. And parents already spend money on hearing aids, they spend money on all kinds of stuff for their child. So I want them to be able to have the class for free. And I do that for hearing parents of deaf children. I do it for hearing parents of children with special needs. Just you name it. So I want everybody to be able to have access to a very good curriculum, very good ASL learning,
Hmm.
and it to be inexpensive.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if they're going to invest in making their child be able to communicate with them,
Mhm.
it's nice that they have an opportunity to invest in themselves to communicate with their child.
Right. Well, and that's a lot of hearing parents. don't learn sign language because, one, there's not a program around them. Two, there's not a qualified instructor around them. And three, it can be very expensive to learn.
Mhm.
So I'm doing my best to keep it as low as I possibly can. And that's what I do. I'm not doing this to, get rich. I have to be, I've had some people say, well, $300 is really expensive. Well, when you look at the curriculum can be itself $200 to $300. And
Mhm.
so what I'm doing is I'm charging for your time with me.
Yeah.
And that's, and I have to be able to,
You have to
feed
be able
my
to pay your
family,
bills. No,
have
I
to be able to
mean,
pay my bills.
like I said, I'm
So,
a curriculum writer as well, and mine
right,
is books, and I have to pay for the print costs. And
right.
I get a lot of, well, if you didn't charge so much, like you're just trying to rip
Mhm.
families off and stuff. And I'm like, I'd love to send you a breakdown of my costs
Yeah,
because
right,
I am not trying to rip anybody off. In fact,
right.
as a homeschool mom of six, I'll sit there at like a
Mhm.
conference or something and work out the very like cheapest deal I can come up with
Mhm.
within my
Mhm.
coupons that I already have in place and stuff to help
Right,
families get this curriculum into their
right.
home. So,
And that's exactly what I ended up doing. The very first year I started this, it was $300 per child, which is still a great deal. But when you
yeah, that
have
is.
but I'd have homeschooler families come up to me with 11 kids. Well,
Yeah,
unless you're independently wealthy, you can't afford that. And so,
no.
like, okay, oh, and here's why: 90% of deaf children are born to hearing parents. So the likelihood of these kids who are taking sign language now, someone's going to have a deaf child when they get
Yeah.
older. Okay, so we have a lot of people who have children with disabilities who need sign language. So somebody out there who's hearing right now, who's learning sign language, you're going to have a child with a disability. I mean, my son was born typically developing at 18 months old. He quit talking. He quit signing. He quit eating everything. He had full sensory. I firmly believe he was healed. He presented with autism, the checklist of autism. I taught children with autism. I've been doing that for over 30
Hmm.
years. And lots of prayer, lots of prayer, lots of prayer for that child from 18 months old to like 4 or 5. And then all of a sudden, he just started outgrowing it.
Good.
But a lot of children don't. Most
Yeah.
children don't. And
I have
so,
an autistic son, so
yeah, and I want this to be able to be accessed by everybody who can afford it. $10 a week.
hmm. Well, and
And
that's a lot of families with kids with developmental disabilities are they fear pulling their kids out of public schools
right.
because they are
Mhm.
afraid they won't have those
Mhm. Skills.
the skill, well, not so much that the resources
Well,
that
yeah,
come with the public
resources.
school.
Right.
And I'm seeing a huge increase in like farm schools and co-ops
Mhm.
and things that have the ability to work closer with these children.
Mhm.
And so whenever there's a few that I have worked out deals with, like that specialize in Down syndrome children or something,
Mhm.
that I get my curriculum into those schools specifically because otherwise they wouldn't have, if they didn't have like a farm school or something, they wouldn't have that
Mhm.
ability to have that one-on-one learning in that
Mhm.
type of scenario outside of the public school system.
That's awesome. I like that you do that. And that's what I want to be able to do. Like I said, I'm also a developmental therapist. So I
Mhm.
work with children. I've worked with children with special needs my whole life. So sign language is the thing I'm pushing. It's the thing oh, and guess what? Most of us are going to end up losing our hearing. I have an uncle who is deaf now. He doesn't know sign language because he wasn't deaf most of his life. He comes to family events and nobody can sign. He can't sign, so he sits there. And then after a while, he leaves because he can't understand anything that's going on.
Or then there's my
So,
husband who was blown up 3 times and he has tinnitus. He
yes,
can't hear half of what I say to him and it causes
yep,
fights all day long.
yep, absolutely. And so the back to the should you take sign language from a hearing
Yeah.
person? Majority of hearing people that teach it, I shouldn't say the majority. There are many hearing people who teach it that shouldn't. They absolutely should not be teaching it. If they teach it, they should be saying, I'm not qualified. Let me teach you some sign language, but I'm not really teaching you ASL because I don't know the language that well. I learned it, but if you go to my website, You can look on, I don't even remember what it's called. There's a tab on there at the top. You click on it, and it gives you just like different people who've sent in their comments about
Or like
having worked with me.
testimonials.
That's the exact word I'm looking for. And to let you know, I have nominal aphasia, so I can't find nouns a lot of times.
Oh, okay.
Even people that I've known for years, like our pastor, same
Mhm.
pastor for 15 years. I can't remember his name over half the time.
Oh
And
no.
his family, I've known them for years. Unless I see you every day, I use your name every day. I likely will not remember your name. It's terrible. So anyway, thank you for testimonials. But if you look at that, I have two ASL. Well, one's a former ASL deaf ASL instructor, and the other one is a current ASL instructor who was my teaching assistant for one of my virtual classes. So she saw me teach. She was my teaching assistant in that classroom, and I taught the
Mhm.
ASL, and she's deaf. And so she is now, after being in my class, she took over my class. Well, she ended up getting the certification necessary to become an ASL teacher. And then the other one is from a former ASL teacher who's a friend of mine who's so I have the stamp of approval from deaf. Whenever I meet a group of deaf and they don't know me, they think I'm
Mhm.
deaf. So I have the skills. I am a native. I sign like a native person.
Mm.
Then if after a
Well, and I mean,
while,
if you've been signing to some extent, even if it
right,
was the not the right sign language, you're very,
right.
since you were 9 years old, you're definitely, I would almost consider that native.
But it's not
Almost,
considered
I said
native.
almost.
It's almost, but I know people who've been signing as long as I have, and you can still tell a difference.
Mm,
I feel it was just a God thing.
yeah.
So then once they find out I'm hearing, they're like, oh, you're a coda. And that means child of a deaf adult. I'm
Uh-huh.
like, no, I'm not a coda. What? That's not possible. Well, yeah. Oh, did you grow? Oh, so I grew up signing. Well, what do you mean you grew up signing if you don't have deaf parents? So I have to explain everything. So I get asked multiple times a day, are you a coda? No, it just actually happened today. Guy goes, oh, you're a coda. No, "Oh, you grew up signing? Yeah, I could tell by the way you sign. So I have the skill. And not only do
Mhm.
I have the sign skill, I have the knowledge. I've studied this. And the third thing is I'm a teacher. So I really
Mhm.
do know how to teach it well. And that's what I do. I love doing it. So there you go.
Well, I love that. We are about at the end of our time, so I have a question I
Okay.
ask all my guests, which
Okay.
is, what does keep growing mean to you?
Keep growing. Well, right now my belly keeps growing because I haven't had as much exercise. I had frozen shoulder for over a year and I couldn't do anything, and my
Oh.
belly grew and it kept growing. So I'm trying to get that to quit growing. But for
Yeah, I
me,
feel you
keep
on that one. When I had my 3-year-old, like I had to do 5 rounds of steroids because my body like was like I
oh,
after I had him, my body was like, nope, like we should just shut down. And
yeah,
yeah, so
yeah,
I feel you on that one, but
yeah.
I'm aiming a little bit more for personal growth.
Keep growing means just keep it's Dory comes to my mind, just keep swimming, just keep learning.
Mhm.
Always, I mean, like I didn't even realize when I first made this curriculum, if you take the class and you get the curriculum, there's no Black American Sign Language in it, because at the time I didn't know about that. I was never taught it. The seven C's, no, not the seven C's. Well, I learned that, but the
Yeah.
five parameters of sign language, no one ever taught that to me. I learned that when I started teaching high school sign language about 7 years ago. So I'm always learning. I'm always learning about people and cultures and how people interact, and how I'm not always right, even if it's how I grew up thinking. I'm not always right. And there's some things that I'm just wrong at. And so for me, keep growing is just learning, just becoming, I don't want to say a better person because that's not the word I'm looking for, but becoming a more educated person and being able to use that well to help people, and not just to elevate myself, but to help people.
I love that. So, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you?
Well, I won't give you my street address because I
Well,
can't I
yeah.
can't afford it. I can't afford to feed people. But you can find me at, if you just Google AmericanSignLanguageCenter.com. Now,
Okay.
I didn't know that. Here's another thing I grew at. After I named this, I found there's another place called the Sign Language Center, and I think it's in New York or
Okay.
something like that. They are totally different. They're not focused on homeschoolers. They do offer
Okay.
ASL classes and stuff like that.
So make sure you have the American Sign Language
Yes.
Center.
And then make sure when you scroll and you find me, you don't click on Sign Language Center. It's American Sign Language,
Okay.
or just AmericanSignLanguageCenter.com. And that brings me up a lot faster.
Okay, great. I will make sure that I link that. And I have absolutely loved this conversation. And I hope that this helps your business grow because I
I
love
hope
what
so
you're
too.
doing.
Thank you. Well, and I really, like I said, ever since I did this for my niece, and working with her class has been amazing. Oh, I was
Mhm.
at the Cincinnati Homeschool Convention,
I was there too.
and I'll be there again.
Okay.
So maybe we'll meet up. And if you're
Yeah.
listening, come visit me.
Yes, go
But
see him.
but one of my students came and he just walked up to me beaming, not really beaming, smiling, but and he just signed back and forth with me. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to see one of my students. That
Oh,
doesn't
I
always
love that.
happen. So yeah. So I have no idea why that came. What were
No,
we
I
even
think that's
talking about?
great because, well, we were just said that I love what you're doing because I feel like
Oh,
it's reaching people. And
yeah.
I can feel that too because um the anxiety that so many kids felt over the last few years of
Yeah.
not being able to provide for themselves
Mhm.
or having no clue how to provide for
Yeah.
themselves when there was no food on the shelves and stuff.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of kids really embrace like my curriculum because it
Mhm.
teaches them how to take care of themselves.
Yeah.
So being able to teach children how to be there for someone else, I think it's
Mhm.
really amazing as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I have enjoyed
So,
this. This was my first one, and
well,
it was just a
fun.
really neat experience, and I appreciate you bringing me on for this time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, everybody go check him out.
Thank you very much. Check me out. Oh, and I forgot, if you when you go to my um, website, see, I'm having trouble with nouns.
Yep.
On the home page, I believe, if it's not, it's the products or something like that. Scroll to the very bottom, and there is a link to the PowerPoint, so you can click on it, and you can see the very first ASL1 lesson that I would teach, all the
Perfect.
PowerPoints, but then right next to it are the videos. It's the curriculum. So click on
Okay.
it, and you can learn ASL1 lesson one, and you can see how it's really best to have an
Oh, that's
instructor
perfect.
teach it,
Everybody
but you can
loves
see the
samples.
lesson. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
All
There's a
right.
sample
Well,
there.
thank you so much.
Okay, thank you for having me. All right, bye.
Did you enjoy today's episode? If so, please head over to your favorite podcast player and leave a comment and review. This helps me to know what you're enjoying and helps others find an episode that can help them. Thank you for joining me today at the Homestead Education, and I hope that I have given you something to think about this week. To help others find me, please comment and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. You can also follow me on Facebook at the Homestead Education and Instagram at homestead_education. Do you have questions that you would like answered or just want to say hi? Please email me at hello@thehomesteadeducation.com. Until next time, keep growing!